Yay! It's live. I'm starting up the Ron Dawson Eckhart Tolle. I hope you got something cool to paint at home. If you have ideas for what to listen to, let me know.
We are one, but we will only feel that when we love everything.
Stretch before
Love everything. And when I was up here, in my ego, I was judging and judging myself. And love that person, but love that person, and love that person. But the soul, you like the ocean.
Where's the audio levels?
Love. You're floating in the ocean.
It's hidden behind the flower. I hope you can hear it.
And that makes you love everything, including that wall. I had a humorous experience. I told an audience that I loved everything. And I said, I love this rug. And it was a restaurant. And the rug was spotted.
I stepped on a Lego.
And I could love that. And a friend of mine, Mickey Lemley, came up, had been in the audience. And he said, look, I love the trees that Gauguin painted, but I can't love that rug. I said, judging. So he sent me for my 80th birthday a piece of rug, and with a spot in the middle. And he said, maybe you'd like to substitute this for your guru on the wall. I wouldn't have. He didn't see that I could do that. And he was losing. He was losing by his judging mind.
So true. Your mind doesn't judge.
Because I was moving towards oneness.
use it to come up with strategies.
With love.
The best strategy from the best judgment.
That's interesting. You should mention the walls and what looks like inanimate objects. I also find often I pick up an object, it could be maybe just a bar of soap or a pen, and there is an appreciation of its existence. Just a moment of appreciating it. The mind could explain it and say, well, that's because ultimately everything emanates from the one, assumes a form, and then changes again. So ultimately, whatever you see or perceive is an emanation of the one. And if you recognize the one in yourself, you can recognize it in any form. And one wouldn't usually call that love, but in a deeper sense, it is a love, it is an appreciation of whatever is around you. And again, it's to do with the world of form, to live in that balance between relating in the world of form and being rooted in the formless, which traditionally perhaps would be called spirit, whatever. So it's dance, and in yourself you can sense. I'll just describe a brief moment when we were driving here today. There's always, of course, there's this temporary body sitting in the car, and there's the mind, there's a name attached to it, and a personal identity. So there's two of you here, so to speak. Don't take it all too literally, it's just we're using pointers only. There's two of you here. The form, this is Eckhart, the spiritual teacher concept, who is going to meet another spiritual teacher, another concept, and they're going to have a dialogue. But there was very little of that. In the periphery of consciousness, I knew that was also true. But the essential truth was, here's a space of consciousness moving and perceiving. So at any moment you can be either more on the side of form, or you can be more on the side of the formless. And the most satisfying way to live is to be more in the dimension of the formless. So as I was traveling in the car, I was really not there as a person, but simply as a space of consciousness. There was no when there's no thought, that's what happens. Just that. And then, if a person were traveling to an important event, how can a person not be anxious? The thinking would arise. How is it going to work out? What's he going to say? What am I going? Are they going to like us? All kinds of stuff will happen. But if you are, and really the essence of it all is to be able to be, and I know the people here and the people who are tuning in from elsewhere are able to recognize the truth of what I'm saying, and that is more and more humans are now able to enter that state where they don't need to think. The compulsion to think goes, and thinking is replaced by presence, stillness, alert, beautiful a space of stillness. So if you can be, at any moment, be that, and you still know, of course, you're still a person for a while, and there's no need when somebody asks you, how old are you, or what is your name? You don't need to say, I am nameless and timeless. You can still go with the conventions and say, well, that's my age and that's my name. You're quite a normal, you use the conventions of form. You still can operate in the world of form, but you're rooted somewhere else in spacious consciousness. For a while, when the transition happened to me, I was so much in the space that for a while I couldn't operate on the level of form very well. And then after a few years, the balance came back. That's so really the essence, I think you will agree, I'm sure, is freedom from thought to access that dimension in yourself. Ramana Maharshi said, the true criterion whether you are making progress on the spiritual path, that's what somebody asked him that question, how can I measure my progress on the spiritual path? And Ramana Maharshi said, the degree of absence of thinking is the measure of progress on your spiritual path. It's easy. Now you know.
You mentioned earlier the word karma, and I wanted to ask you something about that. I think that many people would say that the sudden awakening, Eckhart, that you had was some kind of fabulous good karma, extraordinary karma, grace itself. Ramdas, your experience meeting your guru, Neem Karoli Baba, and the kind of heart awakening that happened, very good karma, extraordinary karma. And then your stroke, being stroked. Somebody might say, well, that doesn't look like such good karma to me. In fact, that looks kind of like yucky karma. And I'm curious what you feel about that, both of you, this idea of the good and bad karma of our lives.
Well, this is this question of grace and karma. My meeting my guru, he knew that was going to happen. Because my knowing that and seeing his mind, his awareness, it would make me think, grace. I was graced to have this meeting. And I would think this his grace to me. I think it was my awareness of his awareness that led me to that conclusion. Because if he had awareness of my life through my entire life, I mean, what his my mother died of a spleen illness, and my guru said, she was big in the stomach and big in the stomach, and this is all in Hindi, and he said, and then it was the spleen. He
This isn't kind of wiry.
And the word spleen he gave in English. It was my mother's dying was being used to help me was that was a city
Well, help us from the other side. Oh.
a power he had. And that's what led me to say it was grace. In fact, I just live in grace because, like, I was a psychologist, and a psychologist, I wouldn't read the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, that funny book. down the hall from me in my office was Tim Leary. And so I took mushrooms. And that opened me up to meet Maharaji and to meet the Bhagavad Gita. I look at all these stages and and my guru knew that. That's grace. It's grace.
I don't see grace as happening as the result necessarily of good karma. Grace can erupt at any stage. It can erupt into bad karma. It can erupt into good karma. It's somehow from another dimension, something comes in. In my case, I would say it came because of bad karma. Without all the suffering, having a childhood that was unhappy, parents continuously fighting, and no harmony in the environment, often lack of money, and then they got divorced, and it was great shame for me when I was 10. Not many parents were divorced at that time. So I had to hide that fact. Countless things came in. My dad, I loved him on one level, and on another level, I hated him. I had a dream because he was like a powder keg that could erupt at any powder keg, like an unexploded bomb. They could erupt at any moment. So I lived my whole childhood with an unexploded, well, often the unexploded bomb exploded. So that's not good karma. And so the young adult became unhappy. It had absorbed unhappiness from the environment and so on. And so all that's not good karma. But because of that bad karma, the suffering became unbearable. And then a surrender happened when the suffering became unbearable. And there was the eruption suddenly of grace. Now the question may arise. I may not be able to answer it, but I'll ask it. The fact that surrender happened in the midst of the suffering, that must be grace. That's probably right. So, who knows? Surrender happened, and with surrender, grace can suddenly flow in fully. Grace is the essence of who you are, coming through the form, so that in grace then you're not, the density of the form lessens, and as it lessens, grace is able to flow through. The density of the form lessens through surrender or acceptance of a simple thing, for let's say acceptance of
He's talking about that. realize its own losing parents, having a hard time with parents.
The
Then
present
it's a
moment
good
is spiritual practice. If you make that your spiritual practice, you may not succeed all the time. That's fine. Have compassion with yourself. And if you don't succeed in accepting what is, then accept that at this moment I can't accept what is. So you have another level of acceptance behind the non-acceptance. I can accept that anger arises in me at this moment. That's what is. Like if I deny it, I should be accepting. Why can't I accept the present moment? Or even better, the mind talk. You have two people. So why can't you? You see, you can't do it. You failed again. That's the self-talk of the ego. Instead, be compassionate. So when you cannot accept, then recognize that and allow the emotion to be there. You still have some space then. And so there's still grace, because grace is space, really. The words are quite similar, actually. Grace and space. Grace is when the space comes into the spaciousness of the unconditioned divine consciousness comes into your life. So the quickest way of inviting grace into your life is, as I sometimes put it, become friendly with the isness of this moment, no matter what form it takes, because it already is anyway. So why not say yes? Because it is. Doesn't mean you can't take action, but at the moment it is. So, in other words, you go with what, it's an expression, you go with the flow of life, and the flow is always here and now. You never go against it. But so this is always the starting point, is the isness of this moment. So then if with that acceptance, the gate is open for grace to come in. If you complain about the difficulties or the unsatisfactory nature of the present moment, the door is closed. Or let's say the shutters are closed, the sunlight can't come in. It doesn't mean you are more powerful than the sun. The sun isn't concerned about your shutters. But so when you deny this, you are somehow against the present moment, or you treat it only as a means to an end because there is a more important place I want to get to. Grace can't operate in your life, or you only get a trickle just to keep you going, just an occasional trickle, occasionally when you go, look at that sunset, and for a moment the complaining entity subsides, and there's a moment where grace can come in, and you can live on that for 3 weeks, one sunset. But of course, it's only a trickle. And so to go from form to formlessness is done by accepting whatever form arises in the present moment, whatever form this moment takes. Immediately so, that's what is. With the acceptance of form, the formless opens up in you. And the ultimate truth of that is in the image of the crucifixion, which I see as goes beyond religion or anything. There is, some people dislike it. They say, I don't like the image of this man on the cross. It's all to do with suffering and it's unhealthy and so on. But there is a deep meaning there that for a long time perhaps could not be expressed in an abstract way. And that meaning is here you have the image of complete suffering of a human, he's nailed to the cross, which is a torture instrument. And this human is able to surrender and accept, not my will, but thy will be done. And then suddenly the torture instrument becomes a symbol of the divine. Isn't that strange? The torture instrument has become a symbol of the divine. So through acceptance, whatever looks like an obstacle or even a dreadful thing becomes transformed. Every situation that's accepted deeply, and if it's a very big thing like a crucifixion, there needs to be very deep acceptance. And immediately there's a transformation. So the grace is hiding also in that which looks dreadful, the dreadful sufferings that we see all around us. They are there, but it's hiding, and you can only see the truth of this in yourself. I'm not saying anybody should believe in that. You have to find out for yourself that grace is hiding in what the seemingly dreadful things, even in little things that go wrong, but even more so in big things that go wrong, so to speak. And ultimately, you see, it's not wrong. It didn't go wrong. That what it looks like in the moment when you judge it. So that's the inviting grace into your life through bringing this deep yes to the present moment. And then your evolution accelerates. And the more you do that, the less you need the disasters. Because you cooperate with the flowering of consciousness. Consciousness wants to flower into this dimension, in this dimension. So it's welcoming really what is.
That was my stroke.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I was in the hospital and I looked at all the doctors, nurses, my family, my friends were all, you have a stroke. And I felt by their minds rubbing off, I was feeling some terrible thing has happened. And there was a picture on the wall of Maharaji. And he was,
I like how slow non-passing is.
this stroke is grace. And there are three fellows here. They're my medical team. And I wouldn't have met them. I wouldn't have met them, and we share philosophy and medical things. But I had stroke. So that was a grace. And then I had I had, before my stroke, I had a book, How Can I Help? It's called, How Can I Help? I was feeling I was helping. And after the stroke, I wrote a book, How Can You Help Me? I wouldn't have thought it possible that I was so dependent and find in myself. And I learned a lot about dependency. And that was positive.
Many of you have probably seen the film made of Ram Dass's life called Fierce Grace. I love that title.
Yeah.
Because when something major like that happens, it really is fierce. And when surrender happens there, it takes you very deep. So it's when fierce grace comes into your life, and that potential is there for going very deep, and that fierce grace burns up the illusory self. It's the fire which the ego gets burned up. It can also be a place where the ego gets strengthened through things. Oh, dreadful. It's all what happened to me. Life, how can life do that to me? How can God do that to me? Why did that happen to me?
Yes.
That blocks it, what is potentially a huge opening into burning up of, one could say, thousands of years of accumulations are burnt up in that fire. So that's perhaps good to know for anybody who is at this moment facing a major, very major challenge in life.
In just a couple of moments, we're going to open up to your questions and questions from our online audience as well. But before we do,
He's saying that the questions are nameless. People didn't write down their names, which is just as well. It's fine.
before we go to these, I just had one last question that
Yes.
I wanted to ask you both. Ramdas, you've mentioned a couple of times your relationship with Maharaji and how important he's been in your life. And I know that people actually look to the two of you. Some people look to the two of you as a kind of guru figure for them, believe it or not. I've seen the photos in people's homes. And I'm curious, if somebody does look to you in that way, how do you think that they could benefit the most from that relationship?
I go. Oprah said to me, "You're not a guru, are you?" I said, "No, of course not." I don't see myself, of course, as a guru. I do know some people look at a photo. At first I was shocked when somebody told me they had my photo on their desk, and I thought, what for? But I then remembered, I saw a photo of, I still have it, Ramana Maharshi. There's particularly one photo of Ramana Maharshi that has incredible light coming through his eyes. And I remember years ago looking at that photo and feeling, sensing that deep stillness and peace and aliveness. But I also knew that that was not the form I was looking at. That was in me. I could sense that, and I could see the reflection of that peace and aliveness in the photo also. So it was a self-recognition. It acted a little bit like a mirror, and it was a self-recognition. But what this mirror shows is it doesn't mirror the outer form to you. It mirrors the inner essence. Whenever you look at somebody, if the photo was taken of an awake being or even a person who at that moment is free of thought and in a state of just awareness, and something comes through the eyes that points to that. It is recognized by something in you when you look at it. It's nothing to do with the person whatsoever. And so what you sense is your own essential reality, reflected back to you by somebody who is free of all the stuff that usually covers it up. There's a line in the Course in Miracles, which is supposed to be Jesus talking, but it just means an impression of the awakened consciousness.
Yes.
So, or Christ, let's say Christ. Jesus is the person, Christ is the formless. So it says, in that line says, in the first, I, meaning I, Christ, or Jesus, I have nothing that you do not have, except that I have nothing else. And so I'm now quite happy with people looking at my photo or looking at me, as long as they don't think they're looking at a person. The person is there on the surface. It's not important. You could say it's the window frame. What you see, what you put with your senses is the window frame. But the thing that happens, the important thing is the light that comes through the window. And the moment you recognize it, it's in you, because it's in you that you recognize it. That's how the reflection works. You can also, I recommend looking at, occasionally you can look into somebody else's eyes, and the similar thing can happen if you both are able to enter the state of aware presence while you look into each other's eyes. There's cessation of thinking. What's left when thinking ceases? Just awareness, pure, unconditioned consciousness. And you look at the other, and suddenly there is no other. There is a merging in the field of awareness. It's a beautiful practice where you transcend the personal in yourself and in the other. And that's a beautiful way of connecting. And so you see yourself in the other. There's the merging. That's it's a lovely spiritual practice if you don't overdo it, just from time to time. And then you do the same in any situation. When you look at a human being, you're not conceptualizing that human being, and you're looking at yourself, the essential, not looking, but sensing the consciousness in the other through being consciousness yourself. And so it all works in the same way. So how do you feel about people looking at your photo?
I say to them, if you met a real one, you know.
You are the real one.
Yes.
Let's stop it there. And restart it next Monday. So if you're interested in hopping on and painting with me. Thank you for watching.